All right. Yeah, I want to talk about the Spring starter for OpenTelemetry. And what I'll try to do is it just works, but except when it doesn't. So that's for the demo gods and because it's Spring Boot. All right. So about myself, actually what I didn't put on here, but 20 years ago, I started my first job as a Java developer in this building. Just realized today. Yeah. Yeah. It was not the first location, but the first company, and we moved here from a different location in Berlin to this one, and I worked here for about 3 years. Yeah, 10 years later, I started using Spring Boot. I still don't know everything about it. 5 years ago, I started working with OTel, and I definitely know that I will never know everything about it. Yeah, and then I started working for Grafana 2 years ago, and now I'm an approver for OTel Java instrumentation, so the stuff that sends all the data, but you will see that later. And I work a bit on some other areas in OTel, operator, collector, and specification. All right, so I want to give you like a quick overview of the state of OTel in 2025, what is new. Then the motivation why building a Spring Boot startup in the first place. Also want to compare it quickly to other solutions in Spring Boot, which is called Micrometer. I want to spend most of the time in the demo to actually see and show you that it is easy and leave time for Q&A, but you can also ask in between. I hope that we have enough time, and if we don't, then it's better if you ask before rather than I'm trying to finish the demo and it doesn't work. All right, so as you can see, we have quite a lot of languages in OTel, and a lot of them have actually moved to stable for traces, logs, metrics. I think that's quite a bit of change for last year, but I haven't recorded it. So Java, which we are talking about, PHP, .NET, and C++. And for some reason, profiling is not listed here, but this is like a new topic that is an active development. I guess in a year or two, this will also be listed here. Yeah, I will not show that. Okay, state of OTel in Java. Java is one of the more mature areas in OTel, probably because a lot of e-commerce and business applications are written in Java, and there's a lot of demand, and there are many libraries. Just counted yesterday, over 100 supported libraries are supported, and it's also compatible with ancient versions of Java. So Java 8 was released long more than 10 years ago, but I did not count. And that is actually only possible because Java has a technology called bytecode manipulation, which means that you can write a software that at runtime looks at all the methods and classes that are loaded and can basically change anything. It can change a return value and can look at parameters, similar to how Python can do monkey patching. And now that I explained how the Spring Starter works, the question is, isn't that good enough? So the question is, why did we, or I and another engineer from Microsoft, why did we spend a huge amount of time last year working on making a Spring Boot starter? So let's start with what we cannot do or cannot yet do. We cannot match the huge number of libraries, more than 100, simply because we cannot change old code, and also because there's a lot of work being done, and it would take a lot of time to have the same level. And then the question is what we can do. And as a Spring Boot user, I like to have a native Spring Boot experience. That means I can just select a library, add it as a dependency, and it is not anything special. And that is exactly what I wanted to have for observability. It should not be anything special. It should be built into the development like you have a database. Well, it's probably kind of hard because without a database, you could not do anything. You could not serve customer requests, but it should be as close as possible to just adding a database. And that is not possible if you are adding a Java agent, then it's kind of this magic. And as a Spring Boot user, you also are used to have a very integrated experience. That means you can take your configuration file called application YAML, and you can just add properties, and the values and names of those properties are automatically suggested. So you can basically just select service name, because we talked about service name a bit before, and hopefully I can show you that this is very easy. And then you can also use another Java agent to do your other magic work, because adding 2 Java agents doesn't usually work well. And you can also use a GraalVM native image, which compiles your entire application into an executable, which starts faster, but it takes ages to compile, so I'm too impatient to show that to you, but there is a full working example that where you can try that out. Yeah, and as I said, I spent a lot of time last year, and it also became stable last year. Now I can talk about it. So, before going into exactly how the Spring Starter works, this is a recap of how OTel itself works. So this is not Java specific and not Spring specific, but in the next slide you will see how it relates to what I'm trying to show you. So the order is my personal preference, and from most important to least important. For me, the most important one is the protocol, because once you have that protocol and you have your application, you know data is sent out, I can switch it somewhere else. I don't have to recompile the application, even if I don't have any developers. And as we've heard in the previous post, even if the data is kind of crappy, you can use AI to make it better. But you need to have the data. Yeah, the next one is semantic conventions, because semantic conventions define the names and attributes. So for a metric, it would be the metric name of the duration of a request, for example, and also the units. So metrics and traces. For logs, this is there is a bit of semantic conventions, but not much. Third one is API. API is more for library authors who want to be compatible with OTel, and they don't want to spend time in 5 years rebuilding their observability stack. And for that, the APIs are stable, and in OTel they are stable, as you have seen in, like here, when it means stable, means the API, among others, but one is that the API is stable. And one special thing is that for tracing, the API is also important, so that different libraries in the same process know which parent span belongs to which child span. Because there are 2 cases. The easy case is you have a thread in Java, and the thread is for a request, and the thing that is first in the thread is done first. This is a parent, and the second one is the child. But sometimes you have something that is asynchronous because it has an executor framework or something like that, and then you need to have some kind of object that says this is a parent, that is a child, and that is what the API is for. Lastly, SDK. The SDK is an implementation of the API, and it also gives you configuration options, for example, with environment variables. Well, the last one is not the least important one. It's just more like at the side. The tooling, the collector and operator is actually very important and very helpful. All right. So now I want to compare the Spring Boot starter that I've worked on to the existing technologies in Spring Boot to explain a little bit why we built something where kind of something similar is already there. So in Micrometer, you have two things. Metrics is quite old and used in many applications, as far as I know. And more recently, a module has been added where you can export the metrics using OTLP. That's why OTLP, the first one. But as Spring Boot is older than OTel, they cannot just change the names of their metrics. Or, I mean, they could, but for Spring, they hold it very dear to not change anything for old applications, because there are many old Spring applications. So changes are only in major versions, and it takes a very long time. And that's why they did not yet add support for semantic conventions. Yeah, but in our Spring starter, so I say our, it's not Grafana where I work for, but it's OTel, because this is something that I worked on just as an OTel contributor. You can import those metrics because there are many applications and libraries that emit those metrics, and in some cases it can be useful to use those. Micrometer tracing is the second part that is a bit newer. It was called something different, slews, I think, before it was called micrometer tracing, but it's still newer than metrics. And in tracing, you can use the OTel SDK to emit traces, but it also does not have the semantic conventions, even though it's newer. And here you have the problem that it is not using the same API. That's why you have this problem here on the right side. And that has actually created some questions and probably even more exploding heads that I am not aware of for users who are trying to combine some library with some other library. They usually don't know that one is using micrometer tracing and the other one is using OTel, and sometimes works, sometimes doesn't, and sometimes works kind of. Yeah, that's basically it. I would love to have like a common approach where there would be only either the micrometer APIs or the OTel APIs, but this has not happened because yeah, the Spring folks have a rich tradition, and they know when they create an API, they also want to keep it. And on the other hand, the OTel folks can also, or don't want to say, oh, we just take another API, because it is for many languages, and picking a different API makes it very difficult for OTel users who actually love to have the same experience across all languages. All right, and this has been a question that has been asked many times, but so far nobody has really gave an answer to this. All right, this is basically what I said, just more in a data flow kind of way. So in OTel, we have instrumentation libraries, and in Spring, there are instrumentation libraries. In Spring, they are called native because they are not maintained by OTel, and they are not in OTel repositories, but they are done by the authors of the library itself. In Spring, this is sometimes also not. They are also sometimes doing it for other libraries. Yeah, semantic conventions are, I mentioned semantic conventions, and later we will hopefully see why this is important. All right, that's actually it. Now I want to start the demo, but if you have any questions, it probably makes sense to ask them now before we go to the demo. All right.
So Smooth used to work with Zipkin, right?
Yes.
And we have a Zipkin receiver in the collector. So would it work to just send Zipkin to the collector, and like, does it work if I send Zipkin spans to the collector and OTel from my Python application to the collector, and do they show up as one trace at the back end? I mean, I guess the question is on the context propagation side of things, right?
You could send both, and they would both show up, but they would not have the correct parent-child relationship. Because internally, Spring does not use Zipkin. It uses something else, which is like a common denominator of both Zipkin and OTel, because those are the two targets for micrometer tracing. If they would say, okay, we just want to optimize for OTel, then it would work.
Doesn't that work with the B3 headers?
The headers are basically where it's between processes.
Yeah. I mean, I have a Python application that is sending data to my collector, and hopefully that one generated a span that originates the Java spans.
Yeah, then it would work. So if here between parent and child you have a process boundary, then it would work. If it's in the same process, then it only works in some cases. So if it's in the same Java thread, then I think it will work. But if it's in a different Java thread because you have an executor, then it will not work because the context is actually stored somewhere else as a meta object. Right. And Java does not have a context object like Go, for example, does.
Is that a property of Java or Spring? Like, kind of, could this also happen just with general Java applications? Because I'm just thinking, like, we sometimes see that there are incorrect parent-child relationships in spans, and we're mostly using Java. But I'm not sure if they all use Spring, so I'm just asking, like...
There are many scenarios where this can happen. Even if you just use the Java agent, which is like one distribution. It usually is because there is some other context propagation mechanism that is not supported, or a library version upgrade changes the version how context is propagated. That sometimes happens.
But if it's between threads but in the same process, then it couldn't be. You said, like, if it's in the same process, it could still, like, lead to this mismatch.
Yes.
But if it's in the same process, it cannot be, like, different methods of propagation. At least I understand propagation is in between processes.
Oh, propagation is the term that is both used between processes and also within the same process. Between processes, you have headers, like Jurasi said, B3 headers, for example, that are added to HTTP. And in the same process, it is some language-specific passing. In Java, by default, the context is stored in a thread local because you can store a thread local without modifying the application. You don't have to pass a parameter. But that only works so long as the entire call is in one thread. And new applications typically don't do that because this is not very efficient.
So in general, you have to expect that there are, like, linkage breaking between parents and child with Java?
No. The Java agent authors have support for those technologies or libraries where it's not easy. So Java Executor, for example, is a framework where you can pass a runnable to a different in a pool, and then it will be picked up by a number of different threads. And they do round robin so that you don't need a thread for every request. And this bytecode manipulation thing of the Java agent can see when you put an object into this pool, and then it will attach some metadata into that object. Maybe there's a map where you can put things into, and then you can add a context ID, a thread trace ID and a parent span ID, and then you can form the correct parent-child relationship. But if that support is missing in the Java agent, and here in the Spring Boot starter, it would be the same. If the Spring Boot starter does not support this, then it would not work. What is even more difficult is if there are two different instrumentation technologies that don't use the same API, then they also don't know what they should expect as a context object. And that is what is making it so difficult to combine Micrometer and OTel instrumentation.
This might be the beer talking, but I miss EJB context.
EJB?
I mean, EJB context was perfect for this kind of situation, right? I mean,
does EJB even still exist?
I don't know.
Maybe it would have been the solution.
That's how old I am. Right?
Last time I used EJB was when I was in university. And as I just said, it's more than 20 years ago.
Yeah.
All right, let me try with the demo before we run out of time. How much time have we left?
You have time.
Okay, good. Good. As long as you still have some energy left. So, yeah, this is my IntelliJ. Weirdly, it does not look black, even though, like here, I have the black theme.
Oh, no.
Oh. Okay, let's see if it does.
Yep. Oh, it's so. Yeah.
Oh, wow!
Should have done it earlier.
Check that cable.
You just turn it off and turn it on.
Yeah, it's all you have to know as an SRE. Okay, so here I'm not just in any project, but I'm in the project called Docker OTel LGTM, which both has examples of instrumenting and also has a complete observability stack based on Grafana technology, of course, because I'm working there. And I have created a new example just so that to get us started a bit faster. And going to explain you what I have already done as the first iteration, and then we will add stuff later on. So here I have two bill of materials. We are using Maven. This is a dependency management section, and first we have OpenTelemetry. This is the latest version, and then we have Spring Boot dependencies. We have the OpenTelemetry first, so that if they are libraries with the same name, the one from the first one win. And since Spring Boot has Micrometer, which has the OTel exporter, but in an older version, I want to make sure that we have the newer version and that they are compatible. And then I just have a starter web, which is from Spring, and then I have the OpenTelemetry Spring Boot starter. And then there's really nothing here. I don't know why we have repackaged. We have a Spring Boot app, but there's nothing interesting here. And then we have a small controller that is just doing roles, and it has a player name. So first, I want to start this. And while this is starting, I'm going to switch here, where I have two windows. The first one is actually starting the image where we have the complete observability stack. So this one is actually just a Docker script, but just to show you what this is really doing. So Mies is just a task runner, so like Makefile, but a bit nicer. And this one is just a shell script. And the shell script is just Docker. The only thing why I don't call Docker is that I probably forget some of the ports. By the way, I did not mention the ports. Yeah, I did not mention the whole slide because it's a demo. This is explaining the project much better than I could do. So on the left side is the application that we're doing that is sending all the data to the OTel collector, which is sending the data to all the databases. The profiling one is not used here, and then we can view it with Grafana, and that's why we have 2 ports on the left and 1 port on the right side. Here, so this is just passing the ports, and some people like to actually persist the data, but the goal of the project is more to have an easy try-out experience. So it's not optimized for scalability, but it's optimized for startup time. Did it work out? Yeah, it started in 3 seconds. That was the latest iteration that I did because it was taking half a minute before. And then it also has an environment file, which is not really needed, but I set it here to an external endpoint, so I can also view the data in Grafana Cloud, but this is actually not needed. OK. So back to our application. Is it started now? Now, I think in the beginning it sent some errors because the observability stack was not started, and now I will also put some traffic. This is just a curl script that pulls the endpoint. Sometimes it gives an error because the error is simulated. See if we actually get some data now. Yeah, we have dice rolls. Now let's actually see if we can see some data. Yeah, we have some data. We have some traces. Where are the traces? Oh, cannot scroll down. Okay, so nothing really interesting. Why is it not interesting? Well, because the service is not calling any other service, and it is not calling a database. Just sometimes has errors. Do we see errors? Let's see if that at least works. So this is, by the way, the Grafana 12 that was just released today. I hope I'm using that correctly. Error, yeah, it's error. So here we have an error. Let me see if that works. Copy that. And does it work? Oh, I did not copy the entire thing. Here, there's copy. Yep, that's where the error is thrown. Okay, so that part works. Oh, what I forgot to ask, how many of you have used Spring Boot? Okay, at least a couple of people. How many have instrumented OpenTelemetry in any language? Even more, good. How many have used the two together? Oh, one, okay, good. Okay, but next question is not about instrumenting. Do you see anything that could be improved, that we should make better? Or that you want to have added?
More spans.
More spans, yeah.
An unknown service.
Exactly, unknown service. And I promise that this should be easy to do, so let's see if we can do that. Where's my directory? Here. Very slow today. So let me see, service. OTel. Service.name. No, but it's a different one. Okay. Let me see if I have OTel. Oh. Is it not recognizing? Maybe I'm not. I have to reload Maven. Did work today, but
The goat.
the goat, yeah. I did not sacrifice a goat.
So I guess I have a question. While
Yeah.
you look it up. The new way of doing things is using OTel config files that can be reused across services.
That is right, yeah.
Would that come to the Spring Boot starter as well? Like, could I just add my OTel.yaml file there instead of configuring through the application.yaml?
Yeah, so before answering it, just a bit on the background. Right now, in OTel, the standard way of doing things is environment variables, and that is quite limited. So the most fancy thing is if I write OTel resource at, oh, it's even completing that, but this is not Spring, this is the AI. So I can say service name, service version, something like that. And anything more complicated is specific to any language and is currently blocked. And what I'm unsuccessfully trying to show you is the only way where you can currently use YAML, as far as I know. And what Drassi is saying is that the plan currently is to have the same experience, well, not in Spring syntax, but in YAML or in any unstructured, structured data, to have the same experience. For Spring, we would probably have a major version where we would tell you to switch from the syntax that I'm trying to show here to the one that is compatible. I have spent some time trying to figure out if this can be integrated with Spring, because here you can also use Spring expressions. So in Spring you have a language where you can reference environment variables. I don't know if I get it right, if that is actually correct, or if this is just an AI hallucination, but there is a Spring feature where you can reference other parts in Spring, and you can even reference Java beans and so on. And what I want for the future is that you can also have this, because you're used to it as a Spring user, but with the common YAML format. I'm not sure if that is possible, because this is already stretching the limits of Spring, and it will be even more so with the new format. So I hope it's possible, but no promises. So, okay, since I'm trying to do that here, I'll just look in my stash to see if I'm just too stupid to find the right format. Resource attributes. OTel service name, yeah. The auto-completion just didn't work for some reason. It's not suggesting it. So
Should it show up as a plugin on the right-hand side? Because there's no OTel plugin in Maven, right? So
actually, this is a feature of the dependency here. So it basically just has a JSON file where it lists all the properties, and it should work. Let's see if it's working if we restart the service. So here, tracing is always the tracing logs is the fastest to show up because it's processed right away. Metrics is ingested every minute. You can change it to more often, but for this demo, it's not necessary. So let's see the last one. No, it still has unknown service.
What is the timestamp for that? 59 euro.
Well, what I had before is that when I started in Spring, it's not working, but when I use Maven to start it, then it is working. So that can be tricky. Let me see if that is the case. Oh, it's still unknown service. Did I look for unknown service?
I think that's too old by now. That's still an old phrase that we were looking at.
Can you filter by service name?
It actually says service name here, so it's automatically grouping by service name. That is not the problem. I'm probably doing something wrong because I put it in the wrong directory or something. Something that is a typical Spring problem that that happens every time when I try to do something new. Okay, I'm just going to delete that file and apply the stash as I had it before. Oh yeah, it's in a different directory. That's why. Yeah, okay, good that I had the stash. Let me see if I can also type service. Yeah, now it works. Okay. Whew, at least that worked. Okay. But now I made the mistake that I started it here and also in the other one. It's probably saying that the port is already used. Started it here and no. Seems that it is loaded. Let's see if it works better here. Here it is. Okay, here's roll dice. Okay, then let's just look at that instead. So here, now I can show you where the service name is. Here is service name. And then you also have a bunch of stuff that we did not specify, and that is because there are resource detectors so that you don't have to do all the work yourself. So for example, you have the process ID that was taken from the operating system, and you can also see that it was created by the Spring Boot starter. So if you're reporting a bug, then it's easier for the authors to find where this is coming from. And you have also this correlation that you have between some metric types. So you can actually see the trace that started before the log message was emitted. Okay. Now that we have that, let's also look at some metrics. So there are there is this duration metric that I talked about before, and that has the same name across all languages, and that is really useful for having an APM system where you can see what the request rates for all of your services are. Here, this is the open source version of Grafana, so you don't have the APM tool here. All right. I would have some things that we could do. We could add a manual metric or an additional metric where you can count the number of requests or players. We can add more spans. I heard that before. Or we can add a database, or we can do nothing of it and we just leave more time for questions. So if you don't have anything that you want, then I think we can just cut it here. But if you want something, then I will add it. Yeah?
I just have a quick question. Why is service name not under resource attribute?
Oh yeah, that's a good one. I think we saw it here. That is the visualization of Loki. Loki shows everything flat, and it's actually, you're not the first one to notice that. It would be more useful if that was structured. In traces, it is structured. Yeah, it's a good point. I think it would be better. And now it's also showing up here. For some reason, it didn't before. So here, it is in resource attributes. And
it's down there. It's there. There. Service.name.
Right, yeah, here it is.
But in the configuration, you have to add it to a different place. Or is that like kind of free? You can.
Oh, service name is special. In OpenTelemetry, service name is special. Internally, it translates into resource attribute, but it is like the single one that is required by every telemetry data that we touch.
I could also add it here, by the way.
Yeah.
I also find that confusing that there are two ways. And I just had a customer call today where we found out that in some cases it does matter where you put it, even though it should not.
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, it's an implementation detail. Basically, service name is the only required attribute for OpenTelemetry, and it is top level. An implementation detail is, it is a resource attribute, and so that's why sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I mean, in theory, it should only work if it is at top level.
Right, because if you add it as a resource attribute, then it's probably not recognized at the top level.
So
confusion.
In OTLP, it is only resource attributes. So it's only within the resource attributes. There is a special one called service name, and that's it. So that's why if you specify environment variable with the service name, it might work. But then depending on the library, if you don't have the proper service name environment variable, it overrides the one that you would override with the resource attributes with a default one. So that's why sometimes it doesn't work, sometimes it does. So if you're, as a user, you should only use at the top level. not at the resource attributes part.
So when I see it in Grafana under resource attributes, that's just a visual thing, basically.
Yeah.
Is that really true, Jurassic?
It is how it is internally stored. So in Grafana, you see in two places. One is if you go back there to the screen, you see the at this.
Or here.
Yeah, if you go up there, you see the roll dice up there at the very the trace summary. Even more.
Here, service.
Even more. Some, perhaps even more. So
No, I cannot go up more.
you can go more. Yeah. I mean, here. So here is the service name.
Oh,
for so that's
okay.
the special one.
Yeah, got it.
So, but internally, it gets for the service name that is within resources.
So in Grafana, I know if you go like to the traceql query there, so instead of using traceql itself, it has this kind of building your query by yourself.
Yeah.
Then there's like the top two or so. Yeah, exactly. So if you go to search now, not to traceql,
Yeah.
search. So service name, span name, and
Yeah.
status are like the special one.
Yes. Well,
Or
for
is it all-
OpenTelemetry, only the service name is special.
Okay.
The folks at Tempo, they said, span name is interesting to have it as part of the TraceQL syntax, and so it's there. But from the OTel perspective, the only thing that we require is a service name.
Right.
Even then, we don't throw an error. The specification says that if a service name is not specified, the unknown service should be used, which is what we've seen before, right? So the Spring Boot application was working without the service name, and it was showing unknown service, but it is against the spec. It should have a service name.
Then in the application YAML, you should not put it under resource.
No, it's perfectly fine.
It works, yeah, but as a
Except
user, you
for
should
that-
not. As a user, you should probably not do that.
Okay, got it. Okay.
I mean, it might work for Spring, but it might not work for other libraries.
I mean, I think per spec it should work, but the case I had today was where it actually did not work. They were putting it in an environment variable, but it's basically the same. Most people, I think most authors expect it in service name. That's why it's safer to put it in there. Yep. This is also just my last obligatory slide. That's why I put it on here.
Cool.
All right. Thanks for your time.